Welcome to Lead Smarter, the podcast where you'll hear powerful, no-nonsense conversations about leadership with today's top experts and real-world leaders like yourself. Get the inside strategies, insights, and secrets they've learned on the journey to lead smarter. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Andrew D. Wittman, a former Marine Corps infantry combat veteran, ex-law enforcement officer, and the creator of Inner Armor Perpetual Resilience. Andrew has spent decades operating and training in high-pressure environments, from combat zones and federal protective details to advising leaders and frontline teams in construction, EPC, and other mission-critical industries. His work isn't about motivation or mindset hacks. It's about training people to respond under pressure rather than react emotionally. In this conversation, we dig into what resilience actually is, why leaders need to master their internal responses before they can lead others, and how clarity, agreements, and predictability build trust inside teams when the stakes are high. Let's get into it. Hey, Andrew, thank you for joining me again and giving me a chance to dive deeper after we've met and learning more about you and getting to share your perspectives with the listeners about leadership. And I really wanted to dive into where you actually had touched on inner armor and perpetual resilience the last time we talked. Um, what inspired you to create the inner armor and perpetual resilience programs?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, David. First off, thanks for hosting me. I appreciate, there's a bazillion people out there you could have on, and you picked me, so I appreciate that. The inner armor thing, that was I was doing a lot of mental toughness training already, and after I wrote the parenting book, it went to like number one of Seven Secrets of Parents of Resilience. Went to number one. I was on like Fox News, Today Show, all this crazy press. And I got a phone call from the chaplain of the Marine Corps. The commandant of the Marine Corps tasked him to see if you could reach out to me and see if we could do something for PTSD and suicide rates with the active duty troops.
Right.
For what he called it, the spiritual fitness of the warfighter, because like the drugs weren't helping, the counseling was whatever they were doing, it wasn't moving the needle. Was there something else we could do? And so we launched into that, and we did a lot of work on the back end of me as a former enlisted Marine in the infantry. I know we don't have time. I mean, first off, go into a class, whatever, we go through 100 classes, but you sit through a class on resilience or whatever, you're on to the next thing the next minute. So we wanted to work it in like it was like a workout of the day. We did a resilience workout of the day. Like we would do PT, and it would only take a few minutes so they could make it part of their daily routine. And that's where Inner Armor came from. And then after, I guess, COVID hit and all this went on we got out of the COVID and everything, and I just kind of felt like I needed to put it into a book and get it out to like everybody, and make it available to everyone to do this workout of the day for their inner armor. Because look, man, the world's crazy, dude. I don't know if you've looked around, but holy smoke with the chaos.
Right. Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, and I know you just mentioned resilience, and you talk about tactical versus strategic resilience. How can leaders know which to use and when?
That's a great question. But so for me, this is what I mean. I'm just saying what I do.
Right.
Strategic is for like leaders or people in your organization that they're like they want to move up and they're committed to the vision and they want this long term. Now, tactical is for like we call it the grunt on the ground, right? Or like we use also in we do a lot of stuff in EPC, which is engineering, procurement, and construction, right? So the trades, right? The guys that are out actually doing the welding they don't care about your Emerald City and the vision. They're just trying to get this job done and what's in front of them. So I'm going to use tactical resilience for those guys that they're not worried about buying into a long-term vision or like a football program. We're trying to win a national championship. Man, I'm just trying to do the stuff that's in front of me. I want to get through traffic today, get my bills paid, and not lose my crap. You understand? You know what I'm saying? So that's where tactical is. It's my everyday grind. Where strategic is, I'm looking for my Emerald City. Like I have a 300-year plan. People are like, I don't want no 300-year plan. Somebody wouldn't have like a 300-hour plan. They just want to get the payday. So if that's where they're at, then they get tactical resilience. If you're looking for this longer term snapshot from the 50,000-foot view of your life, then that's strategic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I know, like from my own perspective, I'm trying to figure out the balance. I'm working with team members in my own organization, as an example. I'll be working with my own team members, and I'm trying to focus on the businesses, where business is going. Like high level, somebody's got to make those decisions. And I also need to figure out how to communicate that to team members. And you're right. There's some team members, the role they play, like, that does not matter to them. I doesn't matter how I communicate it to them. The only way I found that it has any value is to figure out how they fit in that, and
Right.
speak to them rather than at them at some level that doesn't even address the
Right. Well,
value they bring.
yeah, that's a leadership. What you're talking about is how to motivate. You got to find out what their internal drivers are. Like, so that's a whole different conversation of like, because somebody's driver might just be, I'm just here to finance me going to my kids' travel soccer club or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's their whole
Yeah.
thing. And they're really focused on the kids' travel soccer or whatever it is. I'm just using that as an example. Right. And if that's what it is, then while you're here, I mean, they'll give you their max effort while they're there, but they're not going to come in overtime and they're not missing the soccer games. You already got to know that, right? So that's how you would coach them from that or motivate them from that. That's an internal driver issue, right? And as a leader of a team, I need to figure out, because look, here's the thing, man. Human beings, everything we do is for selfish reasons.
Right.
Everything. There's nothing that we don't do that's not for a selfish reason. And people are like, well, I'm a family person. I'm like, right, which, how's that make you feel good? Which is a selfish reason. You're a family person because you congratulate yourself that you're a family person. That makes you feel good, right? Or I'm frugal, and that's, which again is selfish. But or I'm luxury. Everything is like the best, and I'm a swag, which also makes you feel. It's all self, right? I just need to find out what that selfish reason is as a leader. And while we're doing that, the resilience piece, selfishly, you should just want to be able to get through your day without losing your stuff. You know what I mean? How do I smooth
Right.
out the edges of this roller coaster? And it's pretty easy. I mean, every human I've ever run across wants to have a better calm the storms inside their heads. I've never heard anybody say, no, I like it in there. I like that storm. I want to keep it.
Well,
You
and
know?
I mean, what you're describing is basically how people are making decisions, navigating their own selfish reasons, their own interests. And I know one of the things you talk about is the science of emotions and making decisions. You also describe emotions as like chemical reactions. Can you talk to me about that a bit? How does
Yeah, so
understanding that help us lead people better?
that's kind of my thing that I call biopsychology. How does the body, mind, and the emotions all work together or against each other? And usually they're working against each other, right? So my whole obsession in life was, how do I get mine to work for me? So when you're
Right.
studying the brain, and a lot of this is coming out now. When I first started studying this back in the 2010s, 11s, there was no data like there is now. I mean, like, I was so on the front edge of this stuff. It was almost like, conspiracy theory kind of stuff. It's like cookie
Right.
science fiction. But now every day another study comes out proving these things. You can't get off your social media feed without seeing another study.
Right.
So the brain, the way it works is that it takes all these data inputs from what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and then it fires off electrochemical reaction fires off in your brain. These neurotransmitters that connect it and send it to the region of the brain where it can make sense and process this information. Now,
Right.
what we found out is whatever your I call it your it's your mindset or your lens or your worldview, or however if you're Igor or Eeyore, and hey poo, or you're Tigger and you're like poo, right, because this is a different like mind. However you do, you're going to process that information. So your brain looks
Hmm.
at that and says what happens in front of you, and that neurotransmitter, it's really a hormone. It calls up a hormone that would match your the best version of what you think you see based on your mindset. Right.
Hmm.
So if today's going to be an awful day, it's going to call up the hormone that will prove your genius self correct. Today's awful. And so the chemical reaction is this neurotransmitter, that would be like cortisol. So the stress hormone is like, oh, cortisol. So then you have about a couple of minutes, maybe 30 seconds before your body floods, your endocrine system floods with that hormone. And now it's that to sustain that response. So I call it the hormone dump, right? That's all emotions are. So think about this, David. Have you ever been like in a near wreck? It's like a brakes, honks,
I
horn,
have. Yeah.
but and right,
Yep.
and then like, and it's over, everything's safe. But like 30 seconds to 2 minutes later, then your heart starts pounding. After it's over, your heart starts pounding, and then you feel upset for like the next 20 minutes, sick to your stomach. That's the hormone dump, right? This happens like all the time, and that's all your emotions are now. So what we need to do, if you're going to be great at this, I'm a practitioner. I've been at it for 30 years and I'm still not, I mean, I'm a journeyman, right? I'm practicing it every day. You have
Sure.
to practice it. How do I want to, what I'm seeing so that it helps me, that I call up the right hormone, which is just a drug. I mean, endorphins are, that's where, like morphine comes. That's what endorphin is, like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
natural. So how do I call up the right drug, if you will, the right hormone to sustain my response and that's the emotional response that I want. So I can, there's people that are like always happy. They've trained themselves to have like a good response all the time. It's dopamine, it's oxytocin, it's all the, serotonin at night, and all the good things, melatonin, and it's all these. They've trained themselves, so they see everything is that half empty or half full. Well, so like the half full people, they've trained their responses that way. Now the half empty people have also trained their responses. So they're like the old curmudgeon, get off my lawn, whatever, you
Right.
crazy kids, and getting cut off in traffic. And every time that you like have that same response, you're training your entire system to do that every time. So it becomes habit. And that's what we are, creatures of habit. People, how long does it
Right.
take to make a habit? People like say 21 days. I'm like, no, it takes one time. As soon as you're comfortable with it, you're going to do it again the next time. Think about where,
Okay.
like, if I always do a 2 day training, I ask everybody, where are you going to sit tomorrow? Where's everybody going to sit tomorrow when they come in? They're going to sit in the same seat.
Right.
You're going to park your car at the same place. And God forbid somebody's at at the cafeteria or the Starbucks sitting in your seat and your booth when you walk in, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not yours, but that's the one that you always sit at. So yes, one time, as soon as you're comfortable, that's a new habit. And then now you start to train and then the body, brain, and emotion gets very quick and efficient at calling up that response faster, 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 faster. So pretty soon it's beyond your control. You don't realize you're doing it. You're not consciously doing it, and you don't even know you're doing it. And if you probably saw a video of your response in traffic, you'd be like, man, and they like blurred out your face and you didn't know it was you. You'd be like, that person's crazy or whatever. I can't believe that. You found that? Like, so it's all
Yeah.
electrochemical, man. It's all of
What
it from beginning to end.
what you've described to me almost like I obviously I think about habits a lot. I'm trying to train. I'm reading right now. I'm finishing up Atomic Habits. I've probably started it 3 or 4 times. I'm like I'm gonna finish it this time. But as you're describing it, you've described your reaction to something that is almost not traumatic. I mean that was a traumatic example,
Right. I
but
try
like
to use that so you could get your head around it. Right.
yeah,
So, but this
but
could be
I
anything.
like that example though because it's like the example you most have to train yourself to get ahead of because it's the one you'll have the least amount of time to process.
Right.
Like it's going to happen, or and maybe that's true for situations generally. It's just we're talking about an extreme situation,
Because it's more, and this is easier to motivate somebody when their stakes are bigger. I'll say it like that. So, like, if I'm
right?
trying to train you on how do you handle like notifications on your phone,
Right?
or text from the boss, or the email with the red thing on it, and I need it ASAP. Right? Those are you're still having these hormonal responses to those things, but the stakes aren't as high as like a car wreck, which is you like. That's why you're like you remember it because the stakes were higher. You don't remember that you had that same exact reaction and hormone dump. That
Right?
was, of course, when you got an email that said ASAP on Friday afternoon, and you're like, "I'm trying to get out of here. Let's throw one more thing on my plate." And blah. It's just I don't get paid enough, and all the whole. That's not my
Yeah.
job description. All the things that you hear as a team leader,
Well,
and
and I
maybe
think
have even said, I don't know.
one of the things I like about when I'm studying, I'll again just fall back Atomic Habits. When I'm studying something
Yeah.
like that, I'm trying to figure out how do I build great habits, right? But what I'm not doing is training myself how to choose what my reaction is in a hormone dump. How am I
Right.
intentionally viewing that situation so that when a hormone dump happens, I've trained myself that it's going to be in a way that benefits me.
Correct.
And that's not something that I'm getting out of Atomic Habits. Like we're talking about habits and processes and outcomes,
Yeah.
not emotional reactions and hormone dumps, which I think it's literally the thing that happens before and also probably informs all of those outcomes.
Yes. So, and this is like I learned this stuff firsthand. I got like 11 deployments in combat areas, and being law enforcement, even worse as a first responder, with 911 call and you're driving up on a domestic violence or any kind of emergency. Like, how do you you have to train, you're trained over and over again not to freak out. Because imagine if you were like a firefighter and the house is on fire and you're at your house and a firefighter drives up and they melt down because, oh my gosh, the house is on fire.
Right.
No, man, they're like, you get over there, get those ladders out. I mean, it's just like they're like that is you're having a hormone dump and they're just at work, right?
Yeah.
Because they've trained it. So that's what we
Right.
want to do. That's what inner armor is really about, is how do I train this, where I'm not at the mercy of the things that happen around me. And so I call it being a first responder instead of an emotional reactor. I can't control anything external. The only thing I can control is my response. I don't even like to say reaction because reaction means I'm not thinking about it. Response is trained. That's
Right.
emergency response, not emergency reaction, right? I'm a first
Right.
responder, not a first reactor, right? I found this like so. It's
Yeah.
it's it gets to the core. It's cellular, dude. I mean, like all those other things and that's why a lot of stuff that I say, it's just so much noise out there about this trick and that tip, and this is not
Right.
tricks and tips, right? This is cellular baseline stuff that you have to get right before you can build all the other things on top of it. And so it it works if you're a human. The things that I'm putting out there, because I've done nothing but obsess over this, and it's all backed by medical science and
Mhm.
neuroscience, and hard data, and and I don't even like to use empirical data because a lot of these psychological studies are self-reported, which they change
Right.
based on your context. You know what I mean? I don't care about your personality,
Mhm.
because your personality changes from work to home to church or PTA or whatever your changes based on your.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is baseline humanity, man. This is how the machine works. Whether you get on board with it or it hurts you or helps you, it's up to you. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's interesting because when I'm in different scenarios and I'm talking to people who are trying to identify ways to make themselves more effective, whether they're somebody that's working for me or working for a client of mine, or whether it's like a just a colleague that we share similar responsibilities. We're both leaders. Um, the emotional reaction to how things are done is if it's talked about at all, it's very separate. It's like it was only like this was a bad example of how I reacted to that thing. But then it's all back to like what's the mundane processes of how to do things and completely ignoring the emotional reaction that you
Yeah.
need to be able to manage to do the things.
And not just
Um,
manage, but I want to even take a point in the direction where it helps me, right?
right.
Not that just is neutral. And usually it's bad. It'd be great if we
Yeah.
got it to neutral, but I wanted to point it in the direction where it moves the whole team forward. Do you know what I mean? Like it launches us. Does that make sense?
It does make
Yeah.
sense, and I think when we talked about this before, you were talking to me about it where from the perspective of this kind of thing, and I was just saying like we're talking about the difference between the actions and managing the responses before you take actions. Um, when we were talking about this before, you were talking about how people need to leaders they need to first be able to address this internally before they can figure out how to support a team.
Correct.
And I'm curious, you're talking about this at a scale of like teaching it in programs. Um, what's it like having conversations with somebody who is not used to managing their own responses, having to look so deeply that it's actually not even a conversation they're usually having because they're usually so focused on outputs and activities and not managing their emotions. It seems like
There's
it
a
would be a
lot of that.
weird conversation.
It is. And really, we just like, um, because of my background,
Right.
people will be polite during
Yep.
the conversation
Yep.
and then immediately dismiss it after I'm gone. But in front of me, they're going to be polite. Like I'm not, they'll push back, but I'd rather have if somebody's pushing back, I know that they're engaged. If they're just being polite, I know this is going nowhere. So I'd rather
Right.
have somebody like fight me and argue with me and all because I know that this is messing with core beliefs. Other people are like, oh yeah, this is wonderful and flowers and sunshine and unicorns. I know that it's as soon as they can get me off of their plate, they're going to get back to whatever they're doing, which is fine. I mean, and look, I don't try to force this on anybody. It works for me.
Right.
So I have a great life. I'm I and again, like I said, I'm not perfect at it. I'm not even great at it. It's constantly every day you have to keep your foot on the gas and working at it. And every day I after action report, where could I change, tweak this, tweak that, and
Right.
get better. And after looking back after 30 years, seeing where I was 30 years ago, it's just like, wow, the small, tiny decisions, the math of that adds up over 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, and I know that, as I was just mentioning before, you've gotta focus on yourself first, before you can look at somebody else.
100%.
How do you help leaders train their teams to perform under stress instead of freezing and overreacting? So, like, how do you help translate for a leader who's now that maybe they've started to look at it themselves, translate that kind of work to their team?
Right, so it's two hats. So while they're learning, you're with the hat of I'm learning. I'm the student. Like I have to get a hold of this stuff, and then my other hat, how do I deal with somebody else? So,
Yeah.
like just for example, I'm once I mean first responder versus first reactor. It's pretty quick. That's a conscious decision, right? I'm
Yep.
gonna, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna channel the 911 operator. What's the emergency? And when I teach the critical thinking matrix, all right, we're gonna follow this filter, and I give processes to all this, not just thrown right. and it also starts with identity. So with the leader, I'm going to get what's your internal identity before you can lead anybody, because you can't give anybody anything you don't have. So it really goes, and that's a whole different conversation. And it takes a little bit of one-on-one to get somebody to really to hone their identity statement and figure out, who am I, who do I want to be. I pre-engineer who I'm going to be, no matter what happens and what comes in life. This is who I am. And so, like, my identity statement is I'm a man of excellence who always keeps his word. So no matter what role Andrew's playing, father, husband, little league coach, volunteer, CEO of my company, or I'm coming in and I'm teaching you, I'm going to give you my best effort because I'm a man of excellence, and I always keep my word, which gives me permission to say no. But if I told you I'm doing something, what's the old saying? If the creek don't rise, or hell or high water, whatever, something like that,
Right.
it's going to happen. I'm going to move heaven and earth to get it done. And if it didn't, I'm probably dead in a ditch somewhere. Right. So that's the trick. If you can get me to give my word, it's like a done deal. But because that's part of my identity statement, I really am guarded about giving my word. Does that make sense? Right. So, but
It
that's the
it
first thing a leader
does.
has to do. Yeah.
It makes me think about, like, if I was to be interacting with you, I talk to my own team, I talk to my own clients, I set expectations all the time. For me, leading a team, one of the things is, it's because my team's remote, I really, really count on them to set expectations with me, meet them. But if you're not going to meet them, you should see it ahead of time, and you should absolutely let me know ahead of time, because even if I'm driving the car, if you let us drive off a cliff because I'm blindfolded, you're at
Right.
fault too. It's not just
Right.
because I'm behind the wheel, it's not my fault
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
So how do you, based on what you
So let
just
me talk about
described?
that. Yeah, let me
Yeah.
talk about that. For so this is the first thing I would tell you right now is expectations is a cognitive shortcut, and it's for lazy leaders. I'm going to get
Okay.
agreements on a team. Expectations is like, it's nonsense. They expect
Okay.
to be paid. You expect to be do that, and expectations are always never met. So I say, don't expect anything. You'll never be disappointed. No, I'm going to have agreements with my team. I'm going to have a team charter, especially on a remote team. Everybody gets to say in this, hey, we're going to respect each other's time. Yes. You know what? When we're on a call, let's be on 3 minutes early so we know the other person's there. So when the call clicks and you're not on, I'm going to text you yes, let's agree to that. Let's agree not to gossip about it. Yes. Let's agree to always give 100% effort and the team comes. Yes. Let's agree to get ahead of it. Even if there's a mistake, as soon as we know what it is, we're going to say it, because there's no judgment. We just got to fix it as a team. Yes. So we get this agreement, this team charter. Everybody signs their name to it. And now, as
Right.
a leader, it's easy, because if it doesn't, I can lead like that, because all I have to do is go back to the team charter and be like, hey, I know you're a person of your word, and we agreed to this, and it's
Right.
totally out of your character. So is something going on with you? Just let me know what, is there something going on? Just leave is something going on? And just leave. You don't like, that's all you have to do now. I don't even have to bring it. I'm just like, if something's going on, because this is not you. We all signed this charter. I know you're a person of your word. You see what I'm saying?
I
Now it's
do.
not,
Yeah, I
you
love
messed
that.
up the expectation. Now we all agreed to this. And call me on my, if I didn't keep my agreement, you're welcome to say, hey, David, you're a great team leader, a great guy. I know you would never. So is something going on?
I
You
love the
following that?
idea of a charter of agreements. I mean, done things, and I've done things with other clients where they would do things like establish like company culture, and these are the pillars, and effectively what we're talking about is, what do we all agree we are and we abide to. Um, but
Yeah, this
taking it a
goes
step
even deeper down
further,
to, like, yeah, just down to like the behaviors of, I'm not going to gossip, I'm not going to backbite, I will
yeah,
be on time. If I'm going to carry my load, if I can, I'm going to ask you to carry it for me, or because look, we all have stuff going on in our personal lives. Everybody
sure,
does. Hey, I got a wedding to go to. I got this. Right, we're going to cover each other because everybody wants that. Right.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? And when everybody's fulfilling their agreement and everybody's a giver, because with expectations is, it's a bunch of takers. I'm expecting you and I'm taking from whatever I expect you to give me.
right,
This is opposite. I'm giving. And if everybody's 100% giving, then everybody's also 100% getting. But there isn't any, like, there's not the baggage of one person is giving and getting taken advantage
right,
of, and everybody else is taking, which a lot of happens on a lot of teams, because somebody will actually do the work and other people will, what I call, sandbag, or they don't doing they're not
yeah,
doing their work. Right. And we all know who they are. I mean, don't point to
right.
them, you don't have to nudge them, but I mean, but get that person to agree that, yeah, I'm going to, and then if they can't keep their agreement, then it's time for them to be managed out of the team. That's just what
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
I like I like how you've basically separated the difference between a giver and a taker, and an expectation and an agreement. The agreement being obviously mutual, because you both have to agree for there to be an agreement, but you don't both have to have an expectation. Like,
Right.
one person can have an expectation. I have never thought of it that way. And now I will probably manage the use of the word expectation out of my vocabulary as carefully as I can.
Right. It's a landmine, dude. It really is.
That's interesting. I never thought about it as a taker situation because I would hold myself to expectations as well.
because you're a giver. But if you're
That's right.
not instinctively a giver, and I didn't agree to that, then
Right.
there's nothing in my nature, my personality, how I'm wired, any of that, my moral code, my integrity, whatever my mindset is, my lens, my worldview, I
Yeah.
would never even think to give you anything. You know what I mean? Like why would I do
Yeah.
that? That's insane.
Admittedly, I've not been because I said we've worked in situations, or I've worked in situations where we would come up together with like company
Hmm.
culture pillars and things like that. I've not managed a charter of agreements. I don't even know what that would look like, except we sit down, we have this conversation, create this big list, and then once we're like, "Yep, that's what the list is," everybody signs it. Is that kind of what you're
That's it.
describing?
I've done it with championship sports teams. I've done it with. This is the only time I ever was published in Harvard Business Review was based on this topic right here. They picked it up and I think they published it in like 2018, right? So, but I've been using it for a long time. I mean, think about it though, as a leader, like I learned this kind of in the Marine Corps, where you can't. I'm expecting these guys to do. What do you mean you're expecting them to do? I don't expect them to do anything that I wouldn't do. If I'm,
Right.
we got to clean the head, scrub the toilets. Well, Corporal Whitman and Sergeant Whitman is going to get in there with you and do it. Right. I'm not beneath that. You know what I mean? Like, let's go in
Right.
and do it. And when they see that we all agree that we're going to get this done faster, we can all go home. Then everybody works together so we can all get out of here. Right? Work hard, play hard kind of agreement.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
the charter can take whatever form. Every team is different. Every group of individuals is different. Don't try to copy it. That's why I don't like to even like, oh, here's an example of a charter. No, man, you guys come up with on your own. Every team has their own chemistry, their own. You see this in like college football all the time with the teams that have charters and work together. That the chemistry, we say they have good chemistry or locker room chemistry. They win because
Right.
they don't care about who gets the glory and who gets the stats. And then there's other teams where it's the stats and I'm a stat star and they don't win everything. You're right. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I you got to decide, do we want to be like a winning team or do we want to have like superstars and you can have great individual stats but we don't really ever win anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of winning teams, one of the things I wanted to ask you is why do you think CEOs often take the same team with them to new
Oh,
companies?
100% why they do. I mean, it's not because they're the best at what they do, it's because they're predictable. I know what everybody's going to do. See, I already, even if they're not even the greatest of at what they are, and they could be like somebody that would rub you wrong, but the
Right.
CEO knows in any given situation this is how they're going to respond. I know if this set of inputs is up, this person is going to do that, right? So I'm going to bring that team with me because I know what they're going to do in any given situation. They're predictable. I know what they're going to do, and that's where the team chemistry happens on the basketball court, where you're making these Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and because they knew what each other was going to do by body language or what the
Right.
defense did. Right, the same thing with the CEO. Whatever the business stuff is coming down, whether it's a lawsuit or regulatory issues or the market just dropped out or whatever, supply chain froze up. I know what these guys are going to do because they're my team. We're going to do, and in law enforcement, the same thing. When you have a great partner, um, on a domestic violence or a tactical situation, just like you could
Right.
raise an eyebrow and you'd be like, "Oh, I know what's going on," right? Because we know each, and that's why CEOs bring that team with them, and why you need to surround yourself with folks that you have a track record of. I know what they're going to do. Does that make sense?
It does. One of the I've thought about this outside of this conversation. I haven't thought about it in terms of CEOs that bring their teams. I have thought about it in the context of like there's two types of relationships, like a partnership in a business and my wife, like the closest, most exposed relationships I can think of. And I remember thinking back the greatest value I can deliver to those relationships, and then generally thinking about it, like any relationship, the greatest value I can bring is predictability.
Right.
Um, and I haven't thought about it in
100.
terms of carrying teams with me, but that makes sense
Yeah.
as why a CEO would make that because the highest value he can get is knowing how to or she to um,
Right.
operate.
And then that's why when what we would call like betrayal or whatever is when they don't operate in that way and it just
Right.
totally blindsides you. And
Right.
now I can't ever trust you again, or to be a very long time before, because now that's what the betrayal is the betrayal of that trust, of
Right.
that you didn't do what you always do. What's going on like now? And
Right.
if you did it one time, now I can't. I don't know that when is it going to happen again another time. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like so.
Yeah. It's like predictability is the
Mhm.
only way that you're going to earn my ability to depend on you.
Right, which is trust. I'm going to
Right,
trust that you're
exactly.
doing right. And that's the and dependability. All these things all hook up together. And I don't think people even think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny is you've definitely one of the questions I was going to ask you is how does get creating team agreements change accountability and trust? You've basically covered lots of the questions I wanted to ask you about this in terms of um, setting expectations, which you've totally killed for me. I will not use
Sorry,
that
man.
word. No, no, it's so good. I'm so glad you did, and I don't have people talk to me about the language I use, and it's because very few people around me are anywhere near as careful about their language as I am. And it's why I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I'm so glad that you spend so much time like focusing on the science of this. So you just bring perspectives to these conversations that I don't typically have with other people. So honestly, I just wanted to say thank you so much
Oh man,
for
thank you,
calling me
brother.
out on setting
I
expectations.
wasn't calling you out. I was just saying you
Oh,
asked. You was like, "What about
yeah.
this?" And I'm like, "Well, but
I
it's
feel
not
like I need
about."
to ask my
Yeah,
team. We should have agreements and expectations.
yeah,
I want to surround myself with people that are gonna
right.
hold me accountable
And be
and
prepared
to
that not
agreements.
everybody's going to agree. Like if someone says, "Yeah, I
That's
agree to be on time," but they're never on time anywhere in anything in their life, they're setting themselves up for failure. They need to just say, "I am not going to agree to that," because and they're like,
yep,
"Yeah," and because the pressure will be like, "Yeah, I agree." No, man, if you're never on time, you've never been on time to a team meeting yet. Signing this agreement, that means you're going to be on time, or that, right? You know what I mean?
yep.
It, so if you're not straight up truthful and honest about this, don't sign the agreement. I'm going to have the hard conversation. This is why I'm not. You either love Andrew or hate Andrew. There isn't anybody. Oh, Andrew's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
no,
you got to
that
have the
that
hard conversation, man.
right, because you're effectively committing to the agreement of who you are, and you're holding yourself accountable to that, so that other people can depend on you, so you can be predictable.
Correct.
Um,
And if you're lying in the agreement, dude, I already know up front. You're going to have to head for the exit. You know what I mean? Like I hate to be that. I mean, that's what it is. If you're going to lie to me about being on time, what else are you going to lie to me about?
yeah. In fact, I mean, I think you might have answered it already, but one of the things, as we're coming to the end of this episode, one of the things I really wanted to ask you, getting your thoughts. I know you told me that you really are a forward thinker. You're really trying to figure out how to be the best version of yourself every day moving forward. But in this instance, I'm going to ask you to forgive me, to ask you to think back, and if you were able to go back
Man.
in time, give yourself one piece of advice, 60 seconds. That's all you get. What would be the piece of advice you'd give yourself so you could be an even better version of yourself now?
Like when people that are older than you that you want to be like find somebody that you want to be like, not like listen to them when they tell you there's no shortcut. Listen to them when they say you got to just there's just no other way than to grind it out, right? So I'm not talking about, I mean, very selective about your mentors. Like would never take fitness advice from somebody I don't want to look like
Right.
at the gym, right? You know what I mean? If I don't want to look like, Arnold Schwarzenegger or the Hulk when I was growing up, was that Lou Ferrigno? I don't want to look
Yep.
like that. I'm probably not going to take advice. They're not my mentor. You see what I'm saying? Like, so whoever it is that then they've been successful. And remember this, if that was my fitness mentor, I'm not going to take advice on relationships from my fitness mentor. They're great at fitness doesn't mean they're great at relationships.
Right.
So this is what I tell my younger self. You find a mentor in each area and who they want to be. Like they're great at relationships, that's my mentor in that relationship. They're great at finance, I'm going to go with that. If they're great at career, I'll go with that. I'm not going to just find one mentor for everything because nobody's that good,
That's
right?
yeah, that's great
Right.
advice. It's
And then
don't
when
find
you
a
find
coach, find a team of coaches.
right, find a team of mentors, not even coaches at the
Yeah,
beginning when
yeah.
you're young. My younger self, I should have got surround yourself and then listen to what they're telling you, man. Like, I mean, don't be like, no, yeah, okay, I got it. There's a shortcut. Just give me the cliff notes. There's no cliff notes, and not one person has it wired. I guess that would be the answer. Is that 60 seconds?
Yeah, I think so, and it's interesting because I'm trying to imagine my younger self, receiving that advice, and if I could at all, it would only have been from me, and I still don't know if I would have gotten through to me because I know that for
Same.
me, I was always looking for like, I'd say even today, if people would talk to me, they're like, I'd tell them, "If there's one thing I want in any situation in life, it's an unfair advantage." And I was just probably even more so when I was younger, just looking for the shortcuts, looking for the unfair
But that is
advantages.
the unfair advantage. The unfair
Yep.
advantage is there's no shortcut. And knowing it. That's the
That's right.
unfair advantage, dude.
Committing to the process and then
Yes.
being longer term, you've won.
100%. You got to have that 50 that strategic thing that we are talking, just to bring it all full circle. That
Yeah.
300-year plan, the 50,000 foot view, the long term strategy will, because the tactics, you're going to get burnt out on just doing the tactical grind every day if you don't have a long-term vision.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you. I've learned things that I'm going to change for myself in my own organizations and just how I communicate. And I hope that people that are listening are getting just as much value as I did. Thank you so much for your time and for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Lead Smarter. And thank you to the partners and sponsors who believe in our mission to evolve ourselves to elevate others. Speaking of elevating others, if you liked this episode, please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and share. It would mean a lot to me and the team that works so hard behind the scenes so we can all learn together. And of course, thank you to the expert guests who kindly join us as generous guides on our journey to lead smarter.